Welcome to Immortal Wisdom with Leon Denis. I'm Vanessa Anceloni, and this is the fourth video of a 15 video series about 15 chapters written by Leon Denis, the notable Spiritist philosopher, in the book After Death, which was recently published by the United States Spiritist Council. Fascinating because today we selected chapter 45, which is about pride or ego, wealth, and poverty. Leon Denis begins by saying that ego or pride, unhealthy pride, is one of the most fearsome of all vices. It's the root of all other vices in our lives. And as he says, I'm going to read to you, it's a monstrous hydra, forever multiplying, and whose offspring are equally monsters. And he mentions to us that to free ourselves from it, it's very difficult. We will face terrible struggles, painful trials, obscure existences, and even humiliations. He says it's the only medicine for the evils created by ego, by unhealthy pride. Socially speaking, he says that pride creates rivalries, division, impossible to improve ourselves due to blindness. He says to improve ourselves, we need to be less egotistic. If we are too self-centered, we will have a hard time even improving ourselves because we'll have a hard time facing our imperfections. And that's why many people, when they see politicians nowadays, celebrities who are very egotistic, and people in general, even ourselves, we have certain levels of unhealthy pride and egotism. People ask, can't he or she see what they are doing? How egotistic they are, how unhealthily proud they are. No, they can't. According to Leon Denis, the human mind, once it's blind, it's very, very hard. And it's going to be cracked in with struggles, painful trials, humiliations. So that's why it's a good tip for us when we are going through terrible struggles, painful trials, obscure existences, and even humiliations. Ask ourselves, is this something that is helping me overcome my egotism, my unhealthy pride? Because if we learn the lesson, we'll quickly be given an opportunity to be living better, shifting from the misery of feeling it. Well, there is more in this chapter, and I'm reading also a few pages to you. He says that proud people are not able to observe themselves well, and it's like a worm that eats up a beautiful fruit. He says it corrupts the most meritorious actions because people are constantly in need of being praised and glorified. So the beautiful things that they do are obscured by the need of the spotlight. It's very, very interesting. How many lives have we lived it? And nowadays we may be experiencing a different life. So he says that in the search of truth, those of us who are centered in egotism, in unhealthy pride, and I say unhealthy pride for those who are watching us, you may be asking, but is there a healthy pride? Depending on the culture, like in the United States, we use the word pride in a more positive way, meaning it's correlated to good self-esteem, okay? So we're seeing unhealthy pride in the sense of being egotistic, being too self-centered, which is unhealthy. So Leon Denis mentions to us quite wisely that in the search for truth, when we are trying to understand life, the universe, even ourselves, we need to conquer this truth with simplicity, sincerity, and righteousness of heart and spirit. So if I am too egotistic, I will have a hard time picking up on the nuances of truth because I'll be blind to it. So I really need to purify my heart, purify myself, be simpler. We often are driven by creating complexity, glamorous things, glamorous events. We remember when we first started Spiritist events in the English speaking language in Baltimore. We created it in venues of the University of Maryland and other locations because we were doing it in the English language, and we would like to give opportunity for people who were not Spiritists to approach the Spiritist principles and the truth without the need of going to a Spiritist center. But many people ask ourselves, do we need to do all these events often in glamorous locations? No. But it's not about the glamour. It's about giving opportunity for people who are not Spiritists to easily come to events who are beyond Spiritist organizations, to find an easier time at non-Spiritist locations to get to know of the Spiritist ideas too. So that has nothing to do with ego, with unhealthy pride. On the contrary, it's a huge effort to organize it and to really create an opportunity for people who will more rarely find these teachings in a Spiritist center they've never heard about. Well, besides this comment, let's go back to the very chapter. In the Spiritist view of egotism, pride, Leon Denis mentions to us that those who are humble in this life will be elevated in the afterlife, and those who are apparently powerful may be diminished in the afterlife. Why? Because we need to conquer immortal virtues, and the temporary positions we are holding in this lifetime don't mean anything in the afterlife. Even the titles we have, they don't mean anything. All that we carry to the other life and to immortality is knowledge, so it's worthwhile studying a lot. It's worthwhile working and working on ourselves and virtues. Everything else, even the roles we play in this life as a mother, as a father, etc., doesn't really keep on going in the afterlife. If you read the book No Solar, you see the message by Andrea Louis' mom. She says, yes, I love you very much, but here we learn many more things, and I'm beyond being your mom. And she doesn't mean it in the sense of saying she doesn't care for him, but saying, you know, we need to grow ourselves above it, meaning the universal family. Well, Leon Denis marches towards the end of this chapter by saying that one tool he can gives to us is a bit of wisdom could prevent us from falling in the traps of egotism, unhealthy pride. He says everything that is passing, beauty, power, we should overcome with a bit of wisdom, knowing that it's passing. And he says there is a test we can do, it's fascinating, to check whether or not we are trapped in pride. He says, and this is page 276, let the most powerful and the most gifted among us be transported to a desert where they shall have to be sufficient. Let them face the raging elements, expose them to wrath of the ocean all on their own. Place them in the middle of a raging storm, ocean waves or underground fires, and watch how their weakness will reveal itself. In times of danger, all social distinctions, the titles and the advantages of wealth are evaluated by their true value. So now he marches towards telling us that wealth is neutral, but if not used well, it can create some impediments for our evolution. Money is not bad, but the way we use it may be good for the progress of all, or may be bad if we fall into temptations, as Jesus mentioned. So, what can we do? A sense of duty. Emmanuel, in another book named Ceifa de Luz in Portuguese, he talks about freedom, and he mentions to us that the true freedom comes with the fulfillment of our duties. What is to fulfill our duties? We need to know ourselves. What is our duty in this universe? We need to do this inner journey to find out. So Leon Denis wraps up this beautiful chapter by saying the following: while we fulfill our duties, we are less tempted, we have less desires and less unhealthy appetites. When we're too driven by passions, it's because we're not fulfilling our duties. And what are our duties? We need to do this meditation. So he mentions to us that there is a lesson also in poverty. Poverty teaches us to have compassion for other people's suffering by making us more acquainted with it. It makes us one with all who suffer. And he finalizes, as often the poetic and beautiful Leon Denis, his loving heart teaching us this immortal wisdom, my friends. Let us be inspired by his recommendations. May we never envy the rich, whose apparent splendor hides so many moral miseries. May we never forget that the solace of poverty conceals the most sublime virtues, like abnegation and spirit of sacrifice. May we never forget either that it is through the labors and the blood and by the continuous immolation of the humble that societies live, defend themselves, and are renewed. What beautiful recommendation. Let us enjoy it, this recommendation, and do our exercise and live a better life using the tools we are granted in this reincarnation.